industry. So we've got a bit of a treat for you this afternoon, and thank you very much for making the effort to come along. So combining the physical and digital in the Phygital revolution, as I've been told, I've practiced that a few times, the Phygital revolution. And this is a combination between Revo, urbanOvation and Savills to bring together two sessions really. One is a fireside chat. I'll introduce the speakers for that in a minute. There was a panel discussion. There will be some drinks after in our good facilities next door, and plenty of opportunity for you to chat with each other after. But also, I know that the panel particularly would also welcome some questions, and they'll be interested in your views on their perspectives. So the first session is the fireside chat, so chaired by Bill Kistler, with Lara Marrero. So they'll be going through the first sort of 25 minutes, half an hour, and two of them will lead off in terms of the key components of the digital revolution. And then Chris Igwe will be the chair for the panel conversation, along with Gerard Brunner, our own Erin Mitsuguruja, I nearly got it right, just about there, and Helena Rodriguez. So I hope I haven't butchered the names too bad. It's quite a selection of interesting names to get through, but a really good bunch. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Bill and to Lara, who are going to go through the first session. Thank you very much.
So, I was saying to Lara before, oh, Mike, yes, you can probably hear me.
How's that? There we go.
We're not elevated, so when I sit down, you're going to just see the top of my head. I apologize. It's just as well for those of you in the back. Anyway, I'll stand for this briefing. Lara's going to do most of the talking. I'm just the pretty face, the intro, the star. But I think I was promised 30 seconds, and most of you know what Revo is all about. You've probably never heard of urbanOvation. We're only a year and a half old. The name is a combination of two words, urban and innovation. And some of you will know me from the old ICSC days. And part of our idea is, as retail is evolving, Revo is at the forefront of the fusion of a variety of uses. It's not just about retail, it's about community. So urbanOvation is taking that to a platform. We're not a trade association, we're not consultants. We're about creating a platform to connect people, to share ideas, to share business opportunities. So rather than meeting at a conference or going to MAPIC once a year, to be able to connect all year long and to be able to do so on a platform basis. So we don't do this except in partnership with organizations like Revo. Most of what we do is online. We're still in our sort of beta launch mode. We have about 1,000 people who've been on the platform. We've done about 200 fireside chats like this in the virtual world. Several of you have participated in those. So I'd encourage you, if you haven't yet participated in an urbanOvation conversation, and it's not just about retail. So we've had conversations about informal settlements in Turkey and the war in Ukraine, but more practically, what's happening with workplace. We have this Thursday of the future, which is the new retail, as people in the office business are saying. How's that changing? So I encourage you to visit our website, urban-ovation.com. It's free. That's the best part of this. And with no further ado, let me introduce what we're going to talk about. So I want to thank Revo and certainly Savills for hosting this. Kaylee, Neil, and I discussed a few months ago coming together to bring an international perspective to this conversation, which is sort of, you hear my accent, I've been here a long time, 30 years. Bring an international perspective to, I think it's more than retail 2.0. 2.0 doesn't do it justice. We're beyond omnichannel. This is a discussion of what has COVID, what is rapidly evolving technology doing to physical retail. How is the fusion between the digital world and the physical world changing things? Where is it creating creative destruction? Where is it creating opportunity? And we have no better person for that. So I'm a recovering architect, for those of you who don't know. A long time. Started with IBM, so I also have an inner geek. So I'm really interested in technology's impact on the built environment. Lara, despite the fact she works for the world's biggest design firm, is not a designer, is not an architect. She has a background in psychology. She manages 700 people who are designers and architects and all kinds of things. You are the global leader of the consumer.
Retail and consumer experiences.
Thank you. I knew I didn't know that. So she has a global perspective. She is one of the most interesting people. She used to be keynote at our ICSC conferences or our European conferences. She is really out there thinking about how these transformative technologies and other things are affecting, I love the phrase you shared with me years ago, the purpose of place. Why do we have place? What is the importance of place? And we're at a moment in time, right now, with all the disruption, where it's never been. So with that, I'll sit down. And did I leave anything out, Lara? We've got to talk about the dog. I asked her what, tell us a little bit about, what your passions are right now. You have a French
I have a French bulldog. Her name is Revo. She was named after Bowie, because come on, you have to. And she's a little amazing love terror, because she's amazing. I love her with all my heart, but she's a little terror. Yeah.
So, how long have you been? You've been here not as long as I have, but
9 years now.
9 years. We both sound like this, but we are kind of Europeans. And you've been leading the consumer.
So I lead Gensler's global retail and consumer experiences practice. We have 53 offices around the world that are working in the RCX space, which includes interiors, architecture, strategy, digital experience design, intelligent places, brand design, you name it, we do it for the RCX community, whether it be an evolution of an app, whether it be a strategy for how social media convergence happens within physical environments, whether it be how we're doing pop-ups versus physical and developing brand fleets. We kind of do a little bit of everything.
And you usually come with a deck. So there's incredible slides, so I tease you with that effect. But those of you who went to the ICSC events will have seen some of the best presentations. And you decided this time we should just have a conversation about what you think is going on. Because
the coolest stuff is the stuff that isn't yet open. It's the markers of what is to come, not only in the work that we're doing, but what we're hearing and what we're seeing and starting to shift into. It's a really exciting time, and I thought instead of showing stuff that's built, why don't we talk about the art of the possible and what happens when you're open to really recalibrating what the space could be.
And so let's talk for a second about this. This is not new. I don't know the term omnichannel was intended, but certainly I'm not around ICSC, it came up at every single conference. The impact of technology on the retail world. And I'm not a retail guy, so I was, frankly, Derek and others will know, I didn't do my due diligence before I took that job. Didn't fully appreciate, and this was 2015, how e-commerce, the Amazons of the world, were disrupting the demand for retail place. And there was kind of a deathbed conversion going on at the time about, gee, we have to focus on experience, we have to create cool prop text so we can enhance the experience. It seems in the last 7 or 8 years that things have changed pretty dramatically.
Last 20?
No, but just even since 2015,
Yeah.
we all knew, we were in denial, it seemed, for a long time that it was going to ever eat away as it has in demand for physical place. But something's happened in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time hearing about the death of retail. I mean, how many of you got so sick of that narrative? Anybody else other than me? Death of retail. It's like more stores have opened this past year than had the past 3 or 4. But anyway, not that I'm keeping track, but I think what ends up happening is we have a few different businesses we're running simultaneously. We've got brands that are trying to connect to people, and we've got retail property, which needs brands to be able to connect to people. And the model's broken, let's just be honest, it's not working the way it needs to. And you have brands that were getting 10, 20-year leases, and they didn't have enough money to keep on putting money into those spaces to keep them relevant. Their over-unders, they were collapsing under themselves. Big data opened up a window for them in terms of understanding the performance of their overall geographic portfolio. Many realized they'd over-indexed on physical place, and that data allowed them to shrink to be able to say, actually, we don't need as many physical we can have less and run on a leaner operational model, and in turn, actually give more back to our people. We can actually think about how we're going to do events for the first time. We're not chilled on our operating costs. And so, in the past, I mean, that was starting to happen in 2015, 2016. And then when you really look at the accelerator that was COVID, you really started to see the moonshots come to life. I can't tell you the number of conversations I have had about RFID technology in 2014 to 2018, and then all of a sudden 2020 hits, and this was this thing that was on the shelf for 2030, and all of a sudden everybody's like, right, we can't get in there, we don't have stock transparency in what's in stores, we have to do this now. We have product sitting in stores we can't get access to, we need to sell it through, let's get this operational. And contracts we didn't think, companies we just did not believe were going to actually accelerate in that way, started moving their business into one that was able to play along the online to offliners, the ones that were pure play physical, that had added a little dab of digital, had now really become integrated businesses. And because of that, when doors opened again, you saw a different level of service, you saw a different level of relevance, and you're seeing a different level of care in terms of valuing people's time and their money. And if you follow time and money, that really gives you, it cracks open the equation of how to create a sense of belonging for people and kind of winning the brand war.
So, first of all, I'm going to tell you,
Turn this off.
turn your necklace around, because I think it's banging.
How about I just hold it? There we go.
Well, it's really interesting. There are a group of us. Raise your hand if you just went on the Inca Center in Hammersmith tour. We had 15 people, many of them from the Revo crowd. We did a fantastic tour led by somebody you're going to see on the panel in a moment, Marrero, who was for a long time the global leader of Inca Centers. And it was an incredibly interesting discussion with the center manager and the manager of the IKEA store on how that, it's not just about creating an urban retail center and an urban, I'll let him tell the story, but the impact, I'm sure he's going to talk about it on the panel, the impact it had on community, in creating community places that bring people together. Meeting point is kind of Firesight's mantra, creating meeting points that get people off their screen, get people back together, not just shopping, but doing cool stuff. And they've been thinking about that for a long time. And for those of you who don't follow IKEA closely, it's sort of one of the last brands in the world that you would expect to be paying attention to things like that. You work with some of the biggest global brands, and you said to me that a lot of it's top secret. Tell me who they are.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, but without revealing names, tell us, some of the biggest brands in the world are doing some amazing things. What's in the pipeline that we're not seeing yet in terms of the evolution of, we're too close to each other, in terms of the evolution of, that's it, we're going to keep that. The evolution of this, the fusion of all these new technologies and physical place. What are they thinking about that isn't yet visible to all of us?
If I do this without the mic, is it all right? Yeah. I think it'll give everybody less time. What is fusion? So one of the biggest things that has come out of, I'm trying to think how to say things without saying things. You guys are going to get me out on this. One of the most exciting things that have come out of post-COVID is retail media in general, and people understanding the value of a place that can generate media as opposed to just a place that is selling through product. I don't know how many of you all were like me and binge watch shows during COVID. Anyone? Yeah? Bridgerton, anyone? We've got Money Heist, you name it. Yeah, see? This became that experiential thing that we needed when we were stuck at home and didn't want to deal with doing the dishes for the millionth time or cooking for yourself, just getting lost in somebody else's reality for a bit, right? And retail has been able to be that for many of us for a long time growing up. When you go into a store and you get to see all these products you don't have, and you get to dream it and want it and covet and then eventually get and go through that whole process. But it was the integration of media and understanding how our behaviors changed so radically from not just about selling products on Amazon we get flagged. All of a sudden, we were also consuming media, and we were consumers of these media platforms. And then there's been a lot of conversation, and not only that, who's a gamer? Anybody a gamer in the room? Anybody have kids that are gamers? Right? But imagine you could actually, instead of driving around Grand Theft Auto, insert blind name here, you could actually go down the high street and you could actually shop in one of those stores in the digital twin environment with Electronic Arts is actually putting that into the game. So what happened was there was a lot more of a conversation about what happens when. Do I need to have it?
Yeah.
Damn it, I tried.
I did try.
Yeah.
Alright. But the reality is that what we started to see was what is the art of the possible? What happens when we're open to things that we may never have been open to before? And so we started to see brands looking at their digital twin. Has anybody heard of digital twin? Does everybody know about it? Does anybody want me to explain it? Okay. The digital twin basically is saying, here's a physical environment, and we're going to create a digital model that is a replicate of that environment. So
And it started with jet engines and things like that.
yeah, we use a program called Revo, Building Information Modeling, where we will build an entire store, Microsoft store just up the street. We built that entire store in a Revit model to the point where we could merchandise every inch of that store. We could look at changeovers, events, you name it. The models used to just be something that we did, and then once the store was over, it was like, hi, it's just a product maker, is what it was. But now we started saying, what happens when that model can generate new life in a metaverse environment, for example, or in Web3, or within a game environment? So now we're creating alternative opportunities to allow people to shop task mode wherever they are in whatever vehicle they're in. So we all know, well, I don't know if you know this, but I know this because I do it daily. You can shop Instagram. It's fabulous. You know, you see something, you can buy it right through there. But now you could be in your virtual space and you can buy it through your game experience. If you know, oh, I need to buy milk, I can actually go into the Tesco in my game and I'll be able to buy milk. And so it doesn't necessarily need to be a task mode in the old-fashioned way. We can still give it an experience. And those are the types of things, as an example.
How's that a good thing for physical retail? If in fact, hang on a second.
Yeah.
If in fact, technologies are advancing, people thought the internet was a joke when it first came out. Now people are saying the same thing about Meta and their share prices collapsed. AI. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline we don't even know about on the tech side that's going to make it even easier. You know, the glasses Apple's just announced to enable the experience in your bedroom that you're talking about. You don't have to get out the door and go to the shop. So is that more of a threat than a positive for physical retail? Because I think most of the people in this room are about physical retail.
Well, if it's physical retail, and you're thinking about a distribution model, right? What is the purpose of place? It goes back to the question I always ask, right? So a lot of the high street stores, part of their role is a point of distribution. And if you have stock transparency, which RFID is now opening up the door to, it doesn't matter if it's in a warehouse or if it's a store on the high street, depending on, if you have a carbon neutral, if you have carbon neutral goals, you're trying to have it be the least, you're trying to get it to the customer in the least amount of ways that you have to transport it, then it's easier to take it from a store to the customer perhaps. But it's all of these things adding together. Now, back to your point about the store, if I can be sitting and shopping with my friends through this game environment, and we can be in Champs-Élysées buying something at a Lacoste store, but it's actually being fulfilled from the store in London and right next to my postcode, and I can have it within 2 hours. I both get an experience, but with that stock transparency, that transaction can get to my house because it's a single platform business now. You're not looking as much about the geographic barriers. We're not looking as much as what the role of place versus what the role of digital is. Place serves as a distribution point.
So, just to build on that for a second, all these architects you work with,
Yeah.
who, I have a soft spot in my heart for creative placemaking. What onus is on them? So as an architect, I like to think the space really matters, and the experience of that space matters. But if in fact I can pretend I'm on the Champs-Elysees instead of actually being there, and then I can go just pick up whatever it is I bought, what does that do to the role of your 700 designers and architects at Gensler, if in fact it's just a distribution?
Place still needs to be designed, and it's a distribution point for those who want to do something in another platform. We have the power of choice. You want to talk about the workplace conundrum? You know, it's like workplace, you've never had a choice, right? Now you have a choice. This is the same thing retail's been through time and time again. I remember in the early noughts when they said, oh, brick and mortar is dead, long live clicks. And, you know, it's like, I can't tell you how many times they've reported the death of retail. But at the end of the day, the thing that lifestyle spaces and consumer experiences have that work doesn't exactly have is this. We want a place to go where we can be together, where we have that sense of belonging, that isn't necessarily a place that is asking us to do something, but it's a place of choice.
So let's take that. By the way, I believe everything Lara's saying, so I'm just being provocative for the sake of making this. But if in fact, and a little anecdote, Mr. Igwe has run several of our virtual discussions, and one of them just really stuck with me, Chris, which was where one of your panelists talked about the importance of experience, but the experience, to my disappointment, had nothing to do with the physical place. It had to do with the interaction with the human being, and that the mistake many retailers was focusing on the tech and not focusing on the training and enabling the people. So the memorable experience had to do with the interaction you had with the people in the store.
Yep.
And that because of the difficult margins in the retail world, being able to pay people and train them to have that kind of experience. And I can think of like 3 or 4 times in the past year where that part of the experience stood out far more than the physical place. So is it really about the tech?
It's the experience strategy. So something, here's a terminology. Has anybody ever heard of experience blueprint? Do you want me to explain what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm asking I'm not trying to be a jerk. I just want to make sure that if I'm saying words, you know what I'm talking about. So an experience blueprint, when a designer is going to design a physical space, it's about understanding how we can create that sense of belonging and that connection. Obviously, there's product in space that you need to touch, feel, see. That's part of the draw of coming into the space. But also, we want to be able to attract and engage and connect. When you're a psychology brain manipulating behavior through space, most of the way that we look at that is through a Z scan. So you read space, words, what have you, by scanning a Z all the time. So when you start walking, you're already scanning a space to see if you can understand it, get in and out of it, and feel like, okay, yeah, I'm not overwhelmed, I can go in. Well, what happened in 2015? There was so much stuff everywhere that you just felt like there were so many things that you didn't want to go in because it was just a barrier to task. It's like, they're going to come at me in a million different ways for Sunday. They're going to spray fragrance on me. I don't want this. I'm out. The experience blueprint allows us to really understand how to get people in, how to navigate the space, giving them the baselines, understanding how the human experience, as we call it the PhD, the physical, human, and digital experiences, all overlay together for impact. So we want you to be able to come into a space and just naturally, in a very intuitive way, feel like you can navigate it. We don't want you to feel like you need 1,000 points of instruction or messages coming at you. There are psychological cues or there are little tiny micro expressions that we teach sales staff to be able to attract you. So when you're going like this, that normally means it's safe time to approach. When you're barreling through a space, don't stop because most likely you know exactly what you want and you're just going to irk the person who's coming through. Then there's the digital layer. So understanding there are people that have already looked at what they want and they want to complete their experience in a physical environment because they're nearby. So how do we allow them to have that digital layer as and when they need it? And so what we do in the experience blueprint is we look at each of our different areas of touch points and find a way for the digital, the human, and the physical to come together along with any brand messaging and product messaging that goes with it. So the blueprint now becomes the Bible, if you will, for how the space performs. And whether or not that space is in a high street location, whether or not it's in a retail park, we still want the added, whether or not it's like you're spending top dollar or top pound to, get this thing to perform, and it's going to be a flagship versus it's going to be a little space that's more focused on task. We want people to have that same journey because that same journey makes it signature and intuitive.
And how many of your global retail clients get this?
All of them. Because
Do they
it's
come in
critical.
with the understanding, or are you holding their hand and helping them?
They come at different points of their journey. So innovation, evolution, revolution.
And have you seen the people you interact with in those brands? Are they evolving? Are the kinds of people on the other side of the table different than they were?
100%. I think we got into a little conversation about the word omnichannel and the eye roll that goes with it because I feel like omnichannel has lived and died. I don't know how many times. Do we have a number? 10?
15 at least.
Multi-channel, omni-channel, you name it. But the reality is now you have a chief brand officer or a chief creative officer or a chief marketing officer that everything sits underneath. And facilities is a function underneath that because the idea is that the overall experience at the customer level has to be the red thread that runs through everything. And this is something that we had so desperately hoped for years would happen. And it was COVID that really pulled the trigger on moving this forward. Once the RFID came into place, once you were able to have that stock transparency, once people were able to understand that they were one business on multiple channels and multiple platforms, once Web3 and Metaverse started waking up and people realized, guys, if we don't get our act together on the channels we have, this is just going to be even worse. It's just going to keep on getting multiplying and dividing, and it's just going to get more complicated. But now what they have is a singular brand vision and understanding what that overall experience needs to be and how it's additive through each of the channels is what makes it really interesting.
So are any of them, ultimately, there's a CFO and their shareholders and there's others. Can you measure success for these evolving? Are there metrics that they're able to say it's actually working? So
Yeah.
We're selling more for whatever.
Absolutely.
than we were before?
I think one of the hardest parts is when you look at the way a brand measures their impact, there is almost an opposing factor to the way that the retail real estate market is measuring impact. And that to me is something, and I get to work on designing malls all the time as well. It's not just, I'm designing centers and I'm designing brands. So I get to see the tension between the two on an hourly basis. But as brands continue to evolve and know their customer more and get into the granularity of where they are and how they can be somewhere for 3 days and create a bigger impact than having a store on a high street for a year, if they're able to really pull everybody together. It's how we create places that are relevant for these brand grabs. And there's a huge opportunity. Like I'm watching as some of these retail landlords and developers are getting really creative about how to host events and really start doing product launches. And
Let's talk about that for a second, but I made a huge mistake
Uh-oh.
at the beginning. Because normally I ask, we have to introduce ourselves, but we don't know who's who in the room except for a few of us. How many of you are actually center managers, hands-on, day-to-day running a shopping center? One. Okay.
we can have a great conversation.
How many retailers? That's all you do. Two. Technology people. Maybe you already raised your hand. Design. Oh, that's interesting. There's a lot of design. Investors. Okay. So a lot of you are just here because you've got nothing better to do. So the reason I ask that is, again, the center that we just had a study tour of. How many of you have been to Live At? Am I saying that right? In Hammersmith. So we got a fantastic tour. I thought it was just the IKEA store, but the transformation of you talk about brands and stores and the relationship, how they leverage technology. But how do you then aggregate the experience in a multi-store environment, whether it's a high street or a center? How much of the work Gensler's doing, and how is technology changing that curation, that mix, how we can more intelligently create multi-retail places with F&B and other things going on? Is that evolving as fast as individual brands are?
It's not. It's not evolving nearly as fast as it needs to. From a brand standpoint, I'm going to answer in two parts. From a brand standpoint, we spend a lot of time talking about brand fleets. And what does that mean? That means what are all the different touch points that a customer would be engaging with a brand. So that's everything from if you're going to be on TikTok, if you're going to be on Instagram, Snapchat, if you're going to do flagships on high streets, inline stores, outlets, understanding if you're going to have a metaverse presence, if you're going to do campaigns, if you're going to do pop-ups, any product launch events. I mean, we're really working with them to understand what their relationship with the customer is going to be as a whole, and then breaking that down so that it's not just a carbon copy every single place you go. We want, kind of as if you have a passport to the brand, every time you go to an experience, you want to have it build on the next, but you don't necessarily want that replicate. We've been there, done that enough that we want to feel like every time we go somewhere, we're getting something for our time, for our money. Then cut to the retail centers. I think the thing that makes me most excited is when you see developers and landlords realize that they themselves are brands. They have a responsibility to build their brand up so that these other brands that are coming in here understand what they're about, that they have a value system, that they understand that they're going to be putting money into the right places, that when you go to a Derwent, or when you go to a Britishland, when you go to a Hammerson, that this is what that means. And that brand impact and that brand value means you just can't sprinkle it in one center and one and done. It means you're going to have to develop a strategy, an overall strategy, almost experience master plan, to understand, regardless of how much money you have to spend, if you understand what your overall experience principles are. And we have this phrase in America, it's knowing where to spread the peanut butter. And somebody once told me I should say Marmite, but I just don't like the taste of it. But anyway, the idea of you're not going to spread it evenly, but it's knowing how you can achieve the same experience, even through small wins.
So, I was just about to open it up. We're not supposed to, I think, because the Q&A was meant to follow the panel. We could go on. We've got 5 more minutes, I think. And we're not going to get a chance to respond. So, Lara may have stirred some thoughts. I saw one hand go up. Why don't we take 2 hands? Let's take first, sir, and then Mr. Scott.
So mine was the first question. With the microphone, it's really hard. It feels like you're speaking to a helium. I don't know whether the way you can hold it slightly different. Make my life easier.
I would like to not hold it at all.
I would like that too.
Maybe further away. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, so it wasn't a question?
No, it was a request.
Okay.
Thank you.
John, do you have a question?
Yeah, I guess there's 2 things for me that I don't know if they conflict or work here. But one is, thank you. One is around the experience still feels that when you talk about people wanting to get that experience of products online. Obviously I'm a male paler salesperson sort of talking here, but my daughter, for example, my son, they still want to go in and fill up that experience, and they'll still, if they want to go and get the latest lipstick from, Glossier, say, they'll choose what they want, but they still want that physical experience. It's that kind of what you were saying, because it almost felt like you could start with like you're going to shop for the bedroom. So from a consumer point of view, I guess it's just down to the curation then of the product. But the other point I want to make is how are retailers being pushed by profitability in everything they now have to do. So you keep reading about, Lara are charging for returns now because everything they do is affecting them online. Are you seeing, do you also work with then the retailers on how they make that how they can still be a profitable business and do everything that you are telling them they need to do?
good design is good business. I worked at Business Suite Architectural Record, and we did an awards program that was called Good Design is Good Business. And designing for the sake of designing, if it's not gonna improve the business, it's, I think it's wrong. I think when we're looking at how we can design an experience that understands the engagement, we need to look at multi-channel engagement, but there's also the very big thing, which also is the ESG goals with these clients. And I would actually say more and more the ESG goals, even if it's at a cost, that is way higher than what the loss might be, because you have to start making those moves somewhere. And that's why that supply chain transparency is so helpful, because it means if you know what product you've got, no matter where you are in the world, guess what? It makes it a lot easier to be able to move products around so that you're selling through, and not looking at that off-market burning product at the end of a run, all these things you hear of that have become very transparent as these generations have been exploring and outing these brands.
So ultimately, one quick point. I like the show. It feels like in the UK, more and more brands are getting sucked into like single ownership. So if you look at
Next.
the Fraser Group,
Yeah.
or Next, they're the two obvious ones. But that feels like the only way that some of these brands are going to survive is to come into a bigger group, because that's the only way into the profitable model will work.
But look at the opportunity there, right? You brought up a great one, right? So look at Selfridges. The ultimate, I go, if I could go there every day, I would. But you go in there and it's curation. It is all about the curation, the brands that it has. You could go to Bond Street and buy literally all those brands on Bond Street. But why go to Selfridges? You get a different cut, you get a different curation. You certainly don't get more product. But you're going because the overall experience is one that Savills has it. But they also have performance on those brands. And if those brands aren't performing, their relevance is the ability to curate them out and put another brand in to keep it fresh, keep it current, right? It's a low risk for a brand to go into a Selfridges. It's a lot higher when you have to sign a 7 to 10 year lease, and then when your brand stops being relevant, you've got a new sucker now. Next, they're pulling these brands in. Guess what? Pro forma, even though they're part of it, if they fade, they will have gotten the run that they need to get out of them, and they can fade back. But now it becomes a curatorial thing. It's giving away shelf space. Guess what else? There are tons of really big spaces available. It's the mid-size unit and the small units that are harder to come by. So by doing that, they're making place relevant again. So there's a lot of really great gestures. Oh, and by the way, next, you buy something online, you get it the next day. Amazing for service. So where am I going to vote? I'm going to vote with my time. I'm going to vote with my money. Ta-da.
So that's the problem.
It's the new, it's department stroke concept stroke mono brand thinking that is gonna start being a new place on the high street that I believe we'll see more of over the coming years.
So I think we're about to eat into Chris and the panel's time. Hang on, no, don't go anywhere. Any sort of parting thought you'd like to leave the audience with that will keep them up at night or get them excited in the morning, go back to work?
Don't be afraid of AI. It is your friend. We've been giving away information for far too long that we did not care that we were giving it away, quite frankly. All the times that you sign up for a loyalty card, that use once, never again. They've had all this information on you for a while. We're now at the age where we're going to see the impact of what giving information away will actually be. And you're going to find a new sense of loyalty to brands that do it right. So watch this space on AI.
Thank you, Laura. That was terrific, even without slides. Just inspiring as always, and I'm sorry we didn't have more time. But I hope we've stirred up